What would you do if the most dangerous man in the city decided you belonged to him? Not because you asked for it, but because your silence spoke louder than anyone's screams? Lena Hart was invisible until the moment Victor Moreau, the ruthless crime lord who owned half the city, looked at her and saw something no one else did. What started as quiet acts of mercy became a suffocating obsession, and by the time she realized she was trapped, it was already too late. This is a story of power, possession, and the terrifying line between protection and control. Stay until the end to see how a girl who had nothing became the one thing a monster couldn't live without. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The Moreau estate sat like a fortress on the edge of the city, surrounded by iron gates, armed guards, and enough security cameras to track a ghost. Inside, the mansion gleamed with polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and furniture that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. It was beautiful in the way a museum was beautiful, cold, untouchable, and built to intimidate. Lena Hart didn't belong there. She was 23 years old, thin from skipping too many meals, with dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. Her uniform, a plain gray dress with a white apron, hung loose on her frame, and her hands were perpetually red and raw from scrubbing floors, polishing silverware, and washing windows until they gleamed. She had been working at the estate for 6 months, hired through an agency that specialized in placing discreet staff in the homes of the wealthy and dangerous. The pay was better than anything she could find elsewhere, and she needed every cent. Her mother was dying of cancer, and the medical bills were crushing her family into dust. So Lena kept her head down, worked herself to exhaustion, and tried to become invisible. That was the trick to surviving in a place like this. Don't draw attention, don't ask questions, and never, ever look the boss in the eye. Victor Moreau was not a man who tolerated curiosity. Everyone who worked in the house knew the rules. You didn't speak unless spoken to. You didn't linger in hallways. You didn't comment on the men in dark suits who came and went at odd hours, or the bloodstains that occasionally appeared on expensive rugs, or the way certain people who crossed Victor seemed to vanish without a trace. Lena had seen him only a handful of times in 6 months, always from a distance, always in passing. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with the kind of authority that made people instinctively step aside. His hair was dark and always perfectly styled, his suits tailored to perfection, and his eyes were the coldest shade of gray she had ever seen. He looked like a man who had never been told no in his entire life. And Lena had no intention of being the one to test that theory. She worked the early morning shift, arriving at 5 a.m. to clean the main floors before the household woke. It was the shift no one else wanted, which made it perfect for her. She could work in silence, finish quickly, and leave before anyone noticed she existed. That morning started like any other. Lena let herself in through the service entrance, nodded to the guard stationed by the door, and made her way to the supply closet to gather her cleaning cart. The house was still dark, the only sound the faint hum of the security system and the distant ticking of an antique clock in the foyer. She started in the east wing, methodically dusting shelves, vacuuming carpets, and polishing every surface until it shone. Her movements were efficient, automatic. She had done this so many times she could do it in her sleep. By 7 a.m., she had moved to the main hallway, where a grand staircase swept up to the second floor. The marble steps were a pain to clean. Every scuff mark showed, and Victor's head of security had made it clear that nothing in this house was allowed to look anything less than perfect. Lena was on her hands and knees, scrubbing the bottom step with a damp cloth, when she heard footsteps behind her. Heavy, deliberate. She froze. Most of the staff didn't start arriving until 8. The guards moved quietly, trained not to make unnecessary noise. These footsteps were different, confident, unhurried, and coming directly toward her. Lena's pulse quickened. She kept her eyes on the floor, her hands still moving in small, careful circles. Maybe whoever it was would just walk past. Maybe they wouldn't even notice her. The footsteps stopped. "You're here early." The voice was deep, smooth, and far too close. Lena's stomach dropped. She recognized that voice. Everyone in the house did. Slowly, carefully, she lifted her head. Victor Moreau stood 3 feet away, hands in the pockets of his slacks, looking down at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. He was dressed casually, No suit jacket, just a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Even without the armor of his tailored suits, he looked dangerous. Lena's mouth went dry. Yes, sir. I work the early shift. I know. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Of course he knew. He probably knew everything about everyone who set foot in his house. I didn't mean to disturb you, she said quickly, dropping her gaze back to the floor. I'll be finished in just a few minutes. You're not disturbing me. There was a pause. Lena kept scrubbing, even though the step was already spotless. She didn't know what else to do. What's your name? The question caught her off guard. She hesitated, then answered quietly. Lena, sir. Lena Hart. Lena, he repeated, as if testing the sound of it. How long have you been working here? 6 months, sir. Another pause. She could feel his eyes on her, studying her in a way that made her skin prickle with unease. You're always here early, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir? Why? Lena swallowed. I like to finish before the house gets busy. It's easier that way. Easier, Victor echoed. Or safer. Her hand stilled. She didn't know how to answer that. Victor crouched down, bringing himself to her eye level. Lena's breath caught. Up close, he was even more intimidating, all sharp edges and controlled power. His gray eyes pinned her in place, and she found she couldn't look away. You don't eat breakfast, he said. It wasn't a question, but it demanded an answer. Lena blinked. I eat at home, sir. No, you don't. Her cheeks flushed. I'm fine, sir. I don't need much. That's not what I asked. There was no anger in his voice, but there was something else, something that felt like a warning. Lena's pulse raced. I eat enough, she said quietly. Victor's gaze didn't waver. You're lying. Lena's hands clenched around the cleaning cloth. She wanted to argue, to insist that she was fine, that he had no right to interrogate her about her eating habits. But she couldn't. Not to him. I have expenses, sir, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Medical bills. My mother is sick. I send most of my paycheck home. She didn't know why she was telling him this. Maybe because lying to Victor Moreau seemed like a very bad idea. Maybe because the way he was looking at her made her feel like he already knew. Cancer, he said. Lena's eyes widened. How did you? I know everything that happens in my house, Victor said simply, including who works here and why. Of course he did. He stood, towering over her once again. Lena quickly got to her feet, clutching the cleaning cloth like a lifeline. From now on, Victor said, his tone leaving no room for argument, you'll eat breakfast in the staff kitchen before you start work. I don't care if you're not hungry. You'll eat. Lena stared at him. Sir, I don't... That wasn't a request. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken authority. Lena's throat tightened. Yes, sir, she whispered. Victor studied her for another long moment, then nodded once. Good. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing down the hall until they faded into silence. Lena stood frozen in place, her heart still racing, her mind spinning. What the hell just happened? Over the next few days, Lena tried to convince herself that the encounter had been a fluke, a random moment of attention that would fade as quickly as it had appeared. Victor Moreau had 1,000 things to worry about. Surely he wouldn't waste time thinking about one insignificant housemaid. But she was wrong. The next morning, when she arrived at 5 a.m., there was a covered plate waiting for her in the staff kitchen. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and a cup of coffee still steaming. Lena stared at it, her stomach twisting with unease. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, walked in and raised an eyebrow. You gonna eat that, or just look at it? I didn't order this, Lena said. Didn't have to. Boss's orders. You eat before you work. Lena's pulse quickened. He said that? He doesn't say things he doesn't mean, Mrs. Chen replied, already moving on to her own tasks. Eat up. You've got floors to clean. Lena sat down slowly, staring at the plate. Part of her wanted to refuse, to insist that she didn't need Victor Moreau's charity. But the truth was, she was starving. She hadn't had a real meal in days. She picked up the fork and took a bite. It was the best breakfast she'd had in months. The gifts didn't stop there. A week later, Lena's paycheck arrived with an extra $2,000 attached. When she asked Mrs. Chen about it, The older woman just shrugged. Bonus? Boss said you earned it. Lena didn't believe that for a second, but she didn't argue. The money went straight to her mother's medical bills. Then her uniforms were replaced. New dresses that actually fit, made from softer fabric that didn't chafe her skin. Her cleaning supplies were upgraded. Her shift schedule was adjusted so she had Sundays off. Small things, subtle things. But Lena noticed every single one. And so did the other staff. You've got his attention, one of the other maids whispered to her one afternoon, her tone somewhere between jealousy and pity. Be careful. Men like Victor Moreau don't do anything without a reason. Lena wanted to argue, but she couldn't, because deep down she knew the woman was right. Victor Moreau didn't do anything without a reason. The question was, what did he want from her? Pause. She got her answer 3 weeks later. Lena was cleaning the library, a massive room filled with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and leather furniture, when Victor walked in. She straightened immediately, her hands clutching the feather duster. Sir? Sit down, Lena. Her eyes widened. I'm working, sir. I said sit. The command in his voice left no room for argument. Lena set down the duster and perched nervously on the edge of a leather armchair, her hands folded in her lap. Victor sat across from her, leaning back with the kind of ease that came from absolute confidence. He studied her in silence, and Lena fought the urge to squirm under his gaze. Your mother's treatment, he said finally. How much does it cost? Lena's breath caught. Sir, I don't think... How much? She swallowed. About $15,000 a month. For the medication, the hospital visits, It's covered. Lena blinked. What? As of this morning, all of your mother's medical expenses are covered. She'll receive the best care available. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Lena's heart stopped. She stared at him, her mind struggling to process what he'd just said. I can't accept that, she stammered. That's too much. I can't. You're not accepting it, Victor said calmly. I'm giving it. There's a difference. But why? The question burst out of her before she could stop it. Why would you do this? I'm nobody. You're not nobody, Victor interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. Not to me. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning Lena didn't fully understand. I don't understand, she whispered. Victor leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees, his gray eyes locked on hers. You work yourself to exhaustion to take care of someone you love. You don't complain, you don't ask for help, and you don't expect anything from anyone. Do you know how rare that is? Lena shook her head mutely. In my world, Victor continued, everyone wants something, power, money, status. They lie, they cheat, they betray. But you... He paused, his gaze softening almost imperceptibly. You're different. You're honest. And honesty is the rarest thing I've ever found. Lena's throat tightened. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Victor said. Just let me help you. It sounded so simple, so kind. But Lena had lived long enough to know that nothing in life was free. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. Victor smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of his lips that didn't quite reach his eyes. I want you to stop killing yourself trying to survive, he said. I want you to eat, to sleep, to live without drowning in debt. And in return, he paused, letting the weight of his words settle. I want you to stay. Stay? Lena echoed. Here, in this house, working for me. Lena's pulse quickened. I already work for you. Not like this. Victor's voice dropped, smooth and dangerous. I want you close, Lena, where I can see you, where I know you're safe. The word safe should have been comforting. It wasn't, because the way Victor said it didn't sound like protection. It sounded like possession. Lena's hands trembled in her lap. And if I say no? Victor's smile widened, but his eyes remained cold. You won't. He was right. Lena didn't say no. How could she? Her mother's life hung in the balance, and Victor held all the cards. Refusing him would mean watching her mother suffer, watching the medical bills pile up until they buried her family alive. So she stayed. And Victor's attention only intensified. He started appearing wherever she was, hallways, kitchens, gardens. Always with an excuse, always with a reason. A question about her mother's health. A comment about her work. A casual observation that felt anything but casual. He moved her into better quarters, a small but comfortable room on the second floor closer to the main house. He insisted she eat meals with the senior staff instead of alone. He gave her new responsibilities that kept her near him more often. Every act of kindness came with an invisible chain, binding her closer to him. And the worst part? Lena was starting to depend on it. The financial security, the safety, the knowledge that someone, anyone, was looking out for her. She told herself it was just gratitude, that she was simply being smart, accepting help when it was offered. But late at night, when she lay awake in her new bed, staring at the ceiling, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had made a terrible mistake. Because Victor Moreau didn't do anything without a reason. And Lena was starting to realize that she wasn't just working for him anymore. She was his. The breaking point came on a cold October evening. Lena was walking back to her quarters after finishing her shift when she heard raised voices coming from Victor's office. She froze, recognizing the sound of an argument. "Don't care what you think," Victor's voice cut through the air, sharp and deadly. "She stays. End of discussion." "She's a liability," another man's voice argued. Lena recognized him as Marcus, Victor's second-in-command. "You're getting too attached. It's making you sloppy. Watch your mouth." "I'm serious, Victor. People are noticing. Your enemies are noticing. If they figure out you care about her, then I'll deal with it." "By doing what? Starting a war over a housemaid?" There was a long, tense silence. "If anyone touches her," Victor said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper, "I will burn their entire world to the ground. Is that clear?" Lena's blood ran cold. She backed away from the door, her heart pounding, her mind racing. This wasn't protection. This was obsession, and she was trapped in the center of it. But that night, Lena made a decision. She couldn't stay here. Not anymore. Victor's interest in her wasn't just dangerous. It was suffocating. Every kind gesture, every gift, every moment of his attention was another bar in the cage he was building around her. She had to leave. But leaving meant abandoning her mother's medical care. It meant going back to the crushing debt, the impossible choices, the slow march toward inevitable loss. Lena sat on the edge of her bed, her head in her hands, and realized the truth. Victor had already won. Because he hadn't just given her financial security, he had given her hope. And now that she had tasted it, the thought of going back to the darkness was unbearable. She was trapped, not by force, by need. And Victor knew it. The next morning, Lena walked into the staff kitchen to find Victor waiting for her. He was sitting at the small table, a cup of coffee in his hand, looking completely at ease. As if he belonged there. As if he had every right to invade even this small corner of her life. "Good morning, Lena." Her stomach twisted. "Good morning, sir." "Sit." She obeyed, her movements stiff and mechanical. Victor pushed a plate toward her. Eggs, toast, fruit, the same breakfast he'd been insisting she eat for weeks. "Eat," he said. Lena picked up the fork, her hands shaking slightly. Victor watched her in silence for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "I know you're thinking about leaving." Lena's fork clattered against the plate. Her eyes snapped up to meet his. "I'm not—" "Don't lie to me," Victor interrupted, his tone still calm but edged with warning. "I can see it in your eyes. You're scared. You think I'm trapping you." Lena's throat tightened. She couldn't deny it. Victor leaned forward, his gray eyes boring into hers. "Let me make something very clear," he said. "You are free to leave any time you want. I won't stop you. I won't hurt you. I won't punish you." Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by suspicion. "But," Victor continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "if you leave, your mother's treatment stops. The bills come back, and you go back to drowning." Lena's breath caught. "That's not fair," she whispered. "No," Victor agreed, his expression unreadable. "It's not. But it's the truth." He reached across the table and took her hand. His grip was firm, warm, and terrifyingly gentle. "I'm not your enemy, Lena," he said. "I'm the only person in this world who's trying to help you. And all I'm asking in return is that you stay. That's all. Just stay." Lena looked down at their joined hands, her vision blurring with unshed tears. She hated him. She needed him. and she had no idea which feeling was stronger. "Okay," she whispered. Victor's grip tightened just slightly. "Good girl," he murmured. And in that moment, Lena realized the terrible truth. She wasn't just trapped in Victor's house. She was trapped in his world, and there was no escape. Not anymore. Yeah. The days that followed blurred together in a strange, suffocating rhythm. Lena went through the motions of her work, but everything felt different now. The house that had once been merely intimidating now felt like a beautiful prison, every hallway a reminder that she had traded her freedom for survival. Victor's presence became inescapable. He wasn't obvious about it. He didn't follow her around or demand her attention constantly, but he was always there, hovering at the edges of her awareness like a shadow she couldn't shake. He appeared in the library while she was dusting shelves, asking casual questions about her mother's latest treatment. He found her in the garden, commenting on the weather while his eyes tracked her every movement. He joined her in the staff kitchen for breakfast, sitting across from her in silence while she forced herself to eat under his watchful gaze. It should have felt invasive, controlling. But Victor had a way of making it seem almost normal, as if there was nothing strange about a crime lord taking such personal interest in a housemaid's daily life. The other staff noticed, of course. They whispered when they thought Lena couldn't hear, their voices a mixture of curiosity and concern. "She's his new pet project," one of the gardeners muttered. "Poor girl doesn't know what she's gotten herself into," another replied. "You think he's sleeping with her?" "Not yet, but give it time." Lena pretended not to hear. She kept her head down, did her work, and tried to ignore the weight of their stares. But the whispers followed her everywhere, a constant reminder that she was no longer invisible. She was Victor Moreau's, and everyone knew it. One evening, about 2 weeks after their conversation in the kitchen, Lena was cleaning the upstairs hallway when she heard footsteps behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "You're working late," Victor said. Lena kept her eyes on the window she was polishing. "Mrs. Chen asked me to finish the second floor before I left." "Mrs. Chen can wait." There was a pause. Lena's hand stilled on the glass. "Come with me," Victor said. It wasn't a request. Lena set down her cleaning cloth and turned to face him. He was dressed in his usual tailored suit, looking every inch the powerful man he was. But there was something different in his expression tonight, something almost soft. "Where are we going?" she asked cautiously. "You'll see." He led her downstairs and through a series of hallways she'd never been allowed to access before. They passed through heavy security doors that required fingerprint scanners, walked by guards who nodded respectfully at Victor and didn't even glance at Lena. Finally, they reached a set of double doors at the end of a quiet corridor. Victor pushed them open and gestured for her to enter. Lena stepped inside and froze. It was a bedroom, but not just any bedroom. The space was enormous, decorated in soft creams and golds, with a massive four-poster bed, plush carpets, and French doors that opened onto a private balcony. There was a sitting area with comfortable chairs, a fireplace, and bookshelves filled with new releases. Everything looked expensive, elegant, and utterly out of place for someone like her. "What is this?" Lena whispered. "Your new room," Victor said simply. Lena spun to face him. "What? No, I already have a room. That room is for staff. This one is for you." "I am staff," Lena protested, her voice rising. "I'm a maid. I clean floors. I don't belong in a room like this." Victor stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "You're not just a maid, Lena. Not anymore." "Then what am I?" The question burst out of her before she could stop it. "What am I to you, Victor?" It was the first time she'd used his name without the "sir" attached to it. The intimacy of it hung in the air between them, dangerous and electric. Victor's eyes darkened. He moved closer still, until he was standing directly in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You're mine," he said quietly. "That's what you are." Lena's breath caught. "I'm not—" "Yes," Victor interrupted, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You are. You became mine the moment you accepted my help, the moment you stayed, the moment you stopped fighting." "I didn't have a choice," Lena said, hating how her voice trembled. "There's always a choice," Victor replied. "You chose your mother's life. You chose security over freedom. You chose me." "I chose survival," Lena shot back, anger flaring in her chest. That's not the same thing, isn't it? The question hung between them, heavy with implications Lena didn't want to examine too closely. I don't understand what you want from me, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. You've given me everything, money, safety, this room, but why? What's the point of all this? Victor reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was gentle, almost tender, but it sent a shiver down Lena's spine. Because I can, he said simply. Because you deserve better than what you had. And because, he paused, his gray eyes searching hers. Because I want you close to me, always. Lena's heart pounded against her ribs. This isn't normal, Victor. You know that, right? This whole thing, it's not normal. Normal is overrated, Victor said, a hint of amusement crossing his face. I've never been interested in normal. I can't accept this room, Lena said, taking a step back. It's too much. People will talk. They already talk. Let them talk, Victor said dismissively. I don't care what they think. Well, I do, Lena replied, her voice firmer now. I have to work with these people. I have to live here. And if they think I'm... She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. If they think you're what? Victor prompted, his tone challenging. My mistress? My lover? My obsession? Lena flinched at the last word. Victor's expression softened slightly. Lena, I'm not asking you to be anything you're not ready to be. I'm just giving you a better place to sleep. That's all. That's not all, Lena said quietly. And we both know it. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on them. Finally, Victor sighed. You're right. It's not all, but it's what I'm offering right now. Take the room, Lena. Please. The please surprised her. Victor Moreau didn't strike her as a man who said please very often. Against her better judgment, Lena felt herself wavering. Fine, she said finally. I'll take the room. But I'm still working. I'm still doing my job. This doesn't change anything. Victor smiled, a real smile this time, one that actually reached his eyes. Of course not, he said smoothly. Whatever you say. But they both knew he was lying. Everything had already changed. The move happened the next day. Lena's few possessions, a handful of clothes, some photographs, a worn copy of her favorite book, looked almost pathetic in the massive new bedroom. But Victor had anticipated that. By the time she arrived, the closet had been filled with new clothes in her size, the bathroom stocked with expensive toiletries, and the dresser drawers lined with soft, folded linens. It was overwhelming, suffocating, and part of Lena hated how good it felt to finally have nice things. She tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy. She still woke at 5 a.m., still put on her uniform, still reported to Mrs. Chen for her assignments, but the whispers had grown louder, the stares more obvious. One afternoon, she overheard two of the younger maids talking in the laundry room. Did you see her new room? It's bigger than my entire apartment. I heard she's sleeping with him. Has to be. Why else would he give her all that? I give it 2 months before he gets bored and tosses her out. Lena's hands clenched around the sheets she was folding. She wanted to march in there and defend herself, to tell them they didn't know what they were talking about. But what could she say? That Victor hadn't touched her? That would only make them think she was naive. The truth was, Lena didn't know what she and Victor were to each other. He treated her with a strange mixture of possessiveness and restraint, always pushing boundaries but never quite crossing the line into something overtly sexual. It was confusing, maddening, and far more dangerous than if he'd just tried to seduce her outright. Because this slow, methodical claiming of her life, her choices, her very existence, was so much harder to fight. 3 weeks into living in the new room, Lena received a phone call that changed everything. It was late afternoon and she was in the library organizing books when her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but something made her answer. Hello? Is this Lena Hart? A woman's voice, professional and detached. Yes, this is she. This is Dr. Morrison from St. Catherine's Hospital. I'm calling about your mother. Lena's blood ran cold. Is she okay? What happened? She's stable, the doctor said quickly. But she had a reaction to her latest treatment. We had to adjust her medication, and we're keeping her overnight for observation. I need to see her, Lena said immediately. I can be there in an hour. Actually, that's why I'm calling. Your mother's bills have all been paid in full, and her new treatment plan has been approved. I wanted to let you know that Mr. Moreau's office has been extremely helpful in coordinating her care. Lena's stomach twisted. Mr. Moreau's office? Yes. They called earlier today to check on her status and expedited some of the paperwork we needed. Your mother is receiving the best care available, Ms. Hart. You don't need to worry about anything. The doctor said a few more things, but Lena barely heard them. Her mind was spinning, anger and gratitude warring inside her chest. Victor had people checking on her mother, coordinating her care, controlling yet another piece of Lena's life without even asking her permission. She ended the call and stood there, trembling with fury. When she finally went looking for Victor, she found him in his office, sitting behind an enormous desk covered in papers and laptop screens. He looked up when she entered, and something in her expression made him lean back in his chair. Lena, what's wrong? You're having people monitor my mother, she said, her voice shaking. You didn't think to tell me? Victor's expression remained calm. I wanted to make sure she was receiving proper care. That's not your decision to make. Actually, Victor said quietly, it is. I'm paying for it. The words hit her like a slap. Lena's hands clenched into fists. You can't just insert yourself into every part of my life without asking, she said, her voice rising. My mother is my responsibility. Mine, not yours. She's receiving better care now than she ever did before, Victor pointed out. Would you rather I stop? Would you rather go back to watching her suffer because you can't afford the treatment she needs? That's not fair, Lena whispered. Life isn't fair, Victor replied. He stood and walked around the desk, moving toward her with that same predatory grace that always made her pulse quicken. But I can make yours easier. I can take away the burden you've been carrying alone for so long. All you have to do is let me. By giving up what? Lena demanded. My independence? My choices? My life? By accepting help, Victor corrected. By trusting me. How can I trust you when you're controlling everything? Lena shot back. You moved me to a new room. You monitor my mother. You dictate what I eat, where I go, who I talk to. This isn't help, Victor. This is... What? Victor challenged, stepping closer. Say it. Possession, Lena finished, her voice breaking on the word. You're treating me like I'm something you own. Victor's eyes flashed with something dark and intense. And if I am? The question hung in the air between them, brutal in its honesty. Lena's breath caught. Then you're no better than the criminals you work with. For a moment she thought she'd gone too far. Victor's expression hardened and she braced herself for anger, for retaliation. But instead he did something unexpected. He laughed. It wasn't a cruel laugh or a mocking one. It was genuine, almost rueful. You're not wrong, he said finally. I'm a criminal, Lena. I've done terrible things to terrible people. I've built an empire on fear and violence. But you... He reached out and cupped her face in his hand, his touch surprisingly gentle. You make me want to be something better, even if I don't know how. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. She should pull away, should tell him to stop touching her, but she couldn't seem to move. I don't understand you, she whispered. I don't expect you to, Victor replied. I barely understand myself anymore. All I know is that when I look at you, I see something worth protecting, something worth keeping. I'm not a thing, Victor. I know. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and Lena hated how her body responded to the touch. You're so much more than that, and that terrifies me. The admission surprised her. Victor Moreau didn't seem like a man who admitted to being afraid of anything. Why? She asked. Because, Victor said quietly, I've never cared about anything the way I care about you. And caring makes you vulnerable. It gives your enemies ammunition. It makes you weak. Then maybe you should let me go, Lena said, even though the words tasted like ash in her mouth. Victor's grip on her face tightened, not painfully, but possessively. I can't do that. Why not? Because you're mine, Lena, and I protect what's mine. Before she could respond, he pulled her closer and kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was claiming, possessive, and absolutely overwhelming. Lena's mind went blank, every thought scattering like leaves in a storm. She should push him away, should tell him this was wrong, that she didn't want this. But her body betrayed her. Her hands came up to grip his shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing him away. Her lips parted under his, and she heard herself make a sound that was part protest, part surrender. When Victor finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "This is insane," Lena whispered. "I know," Victor agreed, "but it's too late to stop it now." And Lena knew, with a sinking certainty, that he was right. She had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She had let Victor Moreau into her life, into her head, and now, apparently, into her heart. And there was no going back. The kiss changed everything and nothing. Victor didn't push for more, didn't demand that she share his bed or declare herself his girlfriend, but the dynamic between them shifted in subtle, undeniable ways. He touched her more often now, small gestures that felt intimate despite their innocence. A hand on her lower back as they walked through the house, his fingers brushing hers when he handed her something, the way he'd tuck her hair behind her ear while they talked. And Lena, heaven help her, didn't stop him. She told herself it was because fighting would be pointless, because Victor always got what he wanted eventually, because she was tired of resisting. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was starting to want this too. Not the control, not the possessiveness, but the attention, the care, the feeling of being seen and valued by someone powerful enough to change her entire world with a single word. It was intoxicating, dangerous, and absolutely terrifying. One evening, about a week after the kiss, Lena was in her room reading when there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find Victor standing there with a small black box in his hand. "I have something for you," he said. Lena eyed the box warily. "What is it?" "Open it and see." She took the box and lifted the lid. Inside was a delicate necklace, a simple gold chain with a small pendant shaped like a key. "It's beautiful," Lena said quietly. "But I can't accept this." "Yes, you can," Victor replied. "It's a gift. You're allowed to accept gifts. From you, gifts always come with strings attached." Victor smiled. "No strings, I promise. He hesitated, looking almost uncertain. "I saw it and thought of you, that's all." Lena looked down at the necklace, her heart aching with conflicting emotions. It would be so easy to just accept it, to let herself enjoy this moment without overthinking it. "Will you help me put it on?" she heard herself ask. Victor's smile widened. "Of course." She turned her back to him, lifting her hair out of the way. His fingers brushed against her neck as he fastened the clasp, and Lena shivered at the contact. "There," Victor murmured, his breath warm against her skin. "Perfect." Lena turned to face him, her hand coming up to touch the pendant. "Thank you." "You're welcome." They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged with unspoken possibilities. "Victor," Lena said softly, "what are we doing?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'm not ready to stop." "Neither am I," Lena whispered, "and that scares me." Victor reached out and pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "Then we'll be scared together." And for the first time since this whole thing had started, Lena let herself relax into his embrace. Maybe this was wrong. Maybe she was making a terrible mistake. But right now, in this moment, she didn't care. Because for the first time in years, she felt like someone actually gave a damn about whether she lived or died. And that was worth almost anything, even her freedom. The weeks that followed felt like living in a dream that could shatter at any moment. Lena moved through her days in a haze of confusion and cautious happiness, trying to reconcile the version of Victor she was getting to know with the ruthless crime lord everyone whispered about. He was gentle with her in ways that seemed impossible for a man with his reputation. He remembered how she took her coffee. He asked about her mother's treatments with genuine concern. He'd appear in the library with books he thought she'd enjoy, or send her favorite meals to her room when she worked late. But the darkness was always there, lurking beneath the surface. She'd see it in the way his guards moved with military precision, in the hushed phone calls he took at odd hours, in the occasional blood stain that appeared on his shirt cuffs before disappearing into the laundry. Victor Moreau was two men occupying the same body, and Lena was falling for both of them. It was a Tuesday morning when everything began to unravel. Lena was having breakfast in the staff kitchen. Victor had joined her, as he often did now, when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression hardened instantly. "I need to take this," he said, standing. He pressed a kiss to her forehead before walking out, and Lena found herself touching the spot where his lips had been, a small smile playing on her face. She didn't notice Mrs. Chen watching her with worried eyes. Victor returned 20 minutes later, but something had changed. His jaw was tight, his shoulders tense, and there was a coldness in his eyes that Lena hadn't seen in weeks. "What's wrong?" she asked quietly. "Nothing you need to worry about," Victor replied, his tone clipped. "Business." But Lena had learned to read him better than that. "Victor?" "I said it's nothing," he interrupted, more sharply than necessary. Then he seemed to catch himself, his expression softening slightly. "I'm sorry. I have some things I need to handle today. I'll see you tonight." He left before she could respond, and Lena sat there feeling like the floor had shifted beneath her feet. The day passed with agonizing slowness. Lena tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting back to Victor's expression, the tension in his voice. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. That evening, she was in her room when she heard shouting coming from somewhere downstairs. Male voices, angry and overlapping. She pressed her ear to the door, trying to make out the words. "Completely unacceptable. Knew the risks? Won't tolerate this kind of—" Then Victor's voice cut through the chaos, cold and deadly. "Get out. All of you. Now." Footsteps thundered through the hallway, followed by the sound of doors slamming. Then silence. Lena waited a full minute before carefully opening her door and slipping into the hallway. The house felt different tonight, charged with violence barely contained like a storm about to break. She found Victor in his office, standing by the window with a glass of whiskey in his hand. His jacket was discarded on a chair, his shirt sleeves rolled up, and there was a cut on his knuckles that was still bleeding. "Victor?" Lena said softly from the doorway. He turned, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. It wasn't anger exactly, it was something darker, more dangerous. "You should go back to your room," he said. "What happened to your hand?" "It's nothing." "It's bleeding," Lena pointed out, stepping into the office. "Let me clean it." "Lena, please." Something in her voice made him relent. He sat down in his chair while she retrieved the first aid kit from the bathroom attached to his office. When she returned, she knelt beside him and gently took his injured hand in hers. The knuckles were split open, the skin raw and angry. This wasn't from an accident. This was from hitting something. Or someone. "What happened?" she asked quietly as she cleaned the wound. Victor was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "One of my associates decided to betray me. He thought he could steal from me and get away with it." Lena's hands stilled. And I made it clear that wasn't acceptable." The words were calm, matter of fact, but Lena understood what he wasn't saying. She'd heard the stories about what happened to people who crossed Victor Moreau. They didn't just lose money or business deals. They lost everything. "Is he alive?" she asked. Victor looked at her, his gray eyes unreadable. "Do you really want to know?" Lena swallowed hard. "No, I don't think I do." She finished bandaging his hand in silence, hyper-aware of the tension radiating from him. When she was done, she started to stand, but Victor caught her wrist. "You're afraid of me now," he said. It wasn't a question. "I'm not afraid," Lena replied, even though her heart was racing. I'm reminded of who you are, what you do." "And who am I, Lena?" She looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who had saved her mother's life, who brought her breakfast and remembered her favorite books, who kissed her like she was something precious, and at the crime lord who ruled the city through fear and violence, who hurt people without hesitation when they threatened what was his. "You're both," she said finally. "You're the man who takes care of me, and you're the monster everyone else sees." Victor's grip on her wrist tightened, not painfully, but possessively. "Does that scare you?" "Yes," Lena admitted, "but not the way you think. I'm not scared you'll hurt me. I'm scared because I'm starting not to care about the terrible things you do. I'm scared because when you told me you hurt that man, my first thought wasn't horror. It was relief that you were okay." Something shifted in Victor's expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. He pulled her closer until she was standing between his knees, his hand settling on her waist. "You're getting attached to me," he murmured. "So are you," Lena shot back. "That's the whole problem, isn't it? We're both in too deep now." Victor's hands tightened on her waist. I tried to warn you. I told you what I was. I know, I just didn't understand what it meant. Lena reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his jaw. I didn't understand that falling for you would mean accepting all of this. The violence, the danger, the moral compromises. You're not falling for me, Victor said, but his voice lacked conviction. Yes, I am, Lena whispered, and that terrifies me more than anything you've ever done. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the weight of the confession hanging between them. Then Victor pulled her down into his lap and kissed her with a desperation that stole her breath. It was different from their first kiss. This one was raw, almost frantic, like he was trying to convince himself she was real. Lena's hands tangled in his hair, and she kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring all her confused, conflicted feelings into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victor pressed his forehead against hers. I can't let you go, he said roughly. I know I should. I know you deserve better than this, better than me. But I can't. Then don't, Lena said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. Don't let me go, just be honest with me. No more secrets. No more controlling everything without asking. If we're going to do this, we do it as equals. Victor pulled back to look at her, something like wonder crossing his face. You're negotiating with me. Someone has to, Lena replied. You're used to getting everything you want without question, but I'm not one of your employees, Victor. I'm not going to just blindly obey. A slow smile spread across his face. No, you're not. That's one of the things I love about you. The word love hung in the air between them, shocking in its casualty. Victor seemed to realize what he'd said because his expression shifted, becoming almost vulnerable. I don't, he started, then stopped. I'm not good at this. Feelings, relationships. I don't know how to do this without trying to control it. Then learn, Lena said softly. Because I can't be with someone who treats me like a possession. I need to be your partner, Victor, not your property. Victor studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, partners. I'll try. That's all I'm asking. He kissed her again, softer this time, almost reverent. And for the first time since this whole thing had started, Lena felt like maybe, just maybe, they had a chance at making this work. She was wrong. The bomb that destroyed their fragile peace dropped exactly 2 weeks later. Lena had been feeling off for a few days, exhausted, nauseous, her emotions swinging wildly from one extreme to another. She chalked it up to stress, to the intensity of her relationship with Victor, to the constant tension of living in his world. But when she missed her period, a cold dread settled in her stomach. No, it couldn't be. She bought a pregnancy test from the pharmacy during her day off, smuggling it into the house like contraband. That night, while Victor was handling business, she locked herself in her bathroom and took the test with shaking hands. 3 minutes. That's how long she had to wait. They were the longest 3 minutes of her life. When she finally looked at the little plastic stick, her world tilted on its axis. Positive. Lena sank to the floor, her back against the bathtub, staring at the test in her hands. A baby. She was carrying Victor Moreau's baby. The realization hit her in waves. Terror, disbelief, and underneath it all, a tiny spark of something that might have been joy if she weren't so completely overwhelmed. She needed to tell Victor. She needed to... But what would he say? What would he do? They'd been together for barely 2 months. This was too soon, too fast, too everything. Lena spent the rest of the night curled up in bed, her mind spinning with possibilities and fears. By morning, she'd made a decision. She would tell him tonight after dinner. They would figure this out together. That's what partners did, right? But when evening came, Victor was the one who had news to share. He found her in the library, where she'd been pretending to read the same page for the last hour. He looked pleased about something, his gray eyes warmer than usual. I have something to tell you, he said, sitting down beside her. Lena's heart jumped. So do I. Me first, Victor said, taking her hand. I've been thinking about what you said, about being partners, about honesty. Okay, Lena said slowly. I want you to know that I'm committed to this, to us. I know I haven't always shown it in the right ways, but... He paused, choosing his words carefully. I want to build a life with you, Lena. A real one. Not just this arrangement we've been pretending is enough. Lena's throat tightened. Victor, I know it's complicated, he continued. My work, my life, none of it is safe or normal. But I can protect you. I can give you everything you need, and I will spend every day trying to be the man you deserve. It was the most open, vulnerable thing he'd ever said to her. And Lena's heart broke a little, because she knew what she was about to tell him would change everything. There's something you need to know, she said quietly. Victor's expression shifted, becoming guarded. What is it? Lena took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. The words dropped like stones into still water. Victor went completely still, his hand tightening around hers almost painfully. He stopped, his voice rough. How long have you known? I just found out last night, Lena said. I was going to tell you tonight, but then you... She gestured helplessly. I didn't plan this, Victor, I swear. I've been careful, but sometimes things just happen and... I know, Victor interrupted. Something in his tone made Lena's blood run cold. What? I said I know. Victor's expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes that made Lena's stomach drop. I know you didn't plan this, because I did. The world seemed to stop spinning. What? Lena whispered. Victor stood, running a hand through his hair. I was going to tell you eventually, just not like this. Tell me what? Lena demanded, her voice rising. What did you do? The birth control pills you've been taking, Victor said quietly. I had them replaced with placebos 3 months ago. Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was hearing. She stood on shaking legs, backing away from him. You sabotaged my birth control? I wanted to make sure you'd stay, Victor said, as if that explained everything. I wanted to bind us together in a way that couldn't be undone. So you took away my choice? Lena's voice cracked. You got me pregnant on purpose, without my consent? I knew you'd be angry. Angry? Lena let out a hysterical laugh. You think I'm just angry? Victor, you violated me. You took away my right to decide when and if I wanted to have a child. How could you? She pressed a hand to her mouth, feeling bile rise in her throat. How could you do this to me? Because I love you, Victor said, taking a step toward her. Because I need you, because I can't lose you. So you trapped me? Lena backed away until she hit the wall. You made sure I could never leave by forcing a pregnancy on me? It's not like that. Yes, it is, Lena shouted. That's exactly what it is. You pretended to respect me, to see me as an equal, and the whole time you were planning this, the whole time you were lying. I didn't lie, Victor said, his voice hardening. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. Lena felt tears streaming down her face. You said you wanted to be partners. You said you'd be honest. And all of it was just manipulation to keep me under your control. I was protecting what's mine, Victor shot back. I was making sure you couldn't leave when things got difficult. That's not manipulation. That's insurance. Insurance? Lena stared at him in horror. You're talking about a baby, a human life, our child. And you created it as insurance? That's not... Victor stopped, his jaw clenching. You're twisting my words. No, I'm finally understanding them, Lena said bitterly. This was never about love or partnership or any of the things you said. This was about ownership. You own this house. You own your criminal empire, and you wanted to own me too. And now you've made sure of it. Lena, don't, she said, holding up a hand. Don't touch me. Don't come near me. I can't even look at you right now. She pushed past him and ran from the library, her vision blurred with tears. She made it to her room and locked the door, sliding down to the floor as sobs racked her body. Victor had betrayed her in the worst possible way. He'd taken the one thing she should have had absolute control over, her own body, her own reproductive choices, and stolen it from her. And now she was pregnant with his child, tied to him forever, just like he'd planned. Lena pressed a hand to her still flat stomach, feeling a complicated surge of emotions. Rage at Victor, fear for the future, and underneath it all, a protective instinct toward the tiny life growing inside her. This baby hadn't asked to be part of Victor's scheme. This baby was innocent. But how could she raise a child with a man who had done something so unforgivable? There was a knock at her door. "Lena, please." Victor's voice was muffled but desperate. "Let me explain. Let me fix this." "You can't fix this," Lena called back, her voice hoarse. "You can't undo what you did." "I know, but we can figure this out, together." "There is no together anymore," Lena said. "You destroyed that when you decided my body was yours to control." Silence. Then, "I love you." "No, you don't," Lena said flatly. "You love owning me. There's a difference." She heard him sigh, heard the sound of his hand against the door. "I'll give you space," he said finally, "but we're going to talk about this. About the baby. About us. You can't just shut me out." "Watch me," Lena whispered. His footsteps retreated down the hallway, and Lena was left alone with her shattered illusions and her uncertain future. She had thought she was falling in love with Victor Moreau. She had thought maybe, against all odds, they could make this work. But she'd been wrong, because the man she'd been falling for didn't exist. He was just another mask Victor wore, another tool in his arsenal of manipulation and control. The real Victor Moreau was exactly what everyone had warned her about, a monster who took what he wanted without caring about the cost. And now Lena was carrying his child. The next few days passed in a blur of avoidance and tension. Lena refused to leave her room except for work, and even then she made sure to be places Victor wouldn't be. When she did see him, brief glimpses in hallways or through windows, he looked haggard, almost haunted. Good, she thought viciously. Let him suffer. But isolation wasn't sustainable, and Lena knew it. She was pregnant. She needed prenatal care, proper nutrition, and a plan for the future. Hiding in her room wasn't going to solve anything. On the fourth day, she finally unlocked her door. Victor appeared within the hour, as if he'd been waiting for the signal. He looked terrible, his hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes, his usually immaculate appearance completely undone. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. Lena wanted to say no, but they needed to talk, so she stepped aside. Victor entered slowly, like he was approaching a wild animal. He sat down in one of the chairs by the window, keeping distance between them. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry." "For what, exactly?" Lena asked coldly. "For sabotaging my birth control? For lying to me? Or for getting caught?" Victor flinched. "For all of it. For thinking I had the right to make that choice for you. For—" He stopped, his voice breaking. "For hurting you." "You didn't just hurt me," Lena said. "You violated my trust, my autonomy, my body. You turned something that should have been a choice into a trap." "I know." "Do you?" Lena demanded. "Do you really understand what you did? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you just regret getting caught, not actually doing it." Victor's hands clenched. "That's not true. I regret thinking that was the only way to keep you. I regret not trusting that you'd stay because you wanted to. I regret being so afraid of losing you that I destroyed the best thing that's ever happened to me." The raw honesty in his voice made Lena's chest ache, but she couldn't let herself soften. Not yet. "What do you want from me, Victor?" she asked tiredly. "Forgiveness? Because I can't give you that right now. Maybe not ever. I want—" Victor stood, moving closer but still keeping his distance. "I want to be there for you, for the baby. I want to prove that I can be better than this, better than what I did." "And if I don't want you there?" Lena asked. "If I decide to leave to raise this baby on my own?" Pain flashed across Victor's face. "Then I'll let you go. I'll make sure you have everything you need, money, security, medical care. But I'll stay away if that's what you want." Lena studied him, searching for signs of deception, but all she saw was exhaustion and genuine remorse. "I don't know what I want," she admitted. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can trust you again. All I know is that I'm pregnant with your child, and that's not going to change." "I know. So what do we do now?" Victor looked at her with such longing it made her chest hurt. "We figure it out, one day at a time, together if you'll let me. Apart if that's what you need." Lena wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the weight of the impossible decision pressing down on her. She wanted to hate him. Part of her did hate him, But another part, the part that remembered his gentleness, his care, his rare moments of vulnerability, that part still loved him despite everything. And she hated herself for that weakness. "I need time," she said finally. "I need time to think, to process all of this. Can you give me that?" "As much as you need," Victor promised. "And I need you to understand something," Lena continued, her voice firm despite her trembling. "If we're going to have any chance at making this work, any chance at all, things have to change, completely. No more secrets, no more controlling my life, no more treating me like property." "I understand." "I'm serious, Victor. One more betrayal, one more lie, and I'm gone. I'll take this baby and disappear, and you'll never see either of us again." Victor's expression hardened with determination. "That won't happen. I swear to you, Lena. I'll spend the rest of my life proving I can be the man you and our child deserve." Lena wanted to believe him, but trust, once broken, wasn't easily repaired. "We'll see," she said quietly. And as Victor left her room, Lena pressed a hand to her stomach and made a silent promise to the life growing inside her. Whatever happened between her and Victor, she would protect this child. She would give it the love and security she'd never had. She would make sure it never felt trapped or controlled or owned. Even if it meant fighting the most dangerous man in the city, even if it meant fighting the father of her child. The time Lena asked for stretched into weeks, then months. Victor kept his promise, giving her space while still making sure she had everything she needed. He arranged for the best obstetrician in the city, ensured she had proper meals delivered to her room, and quietly handled her mother's ongoing treatments without making a show of it. But he didn't push, didn't demand her attention or her forgiveness. He just waited, like a man serving a sentence he knew he deserved. Lena watched her body change as the pregnancy progressed. Her stomach began to swell, her clothes no longer fit, and morning sickness made the first trimester a special kind of hell. Through it all, she wrestled with the impossible contradiction of her situation. She was carrying the child of a man who had betrayed her in the most fundamental way, yet she couldn't quite bring herself to hate him completely. It would have been easier if Victor had been a monster in every way. But he wasn't. He was complicated, damaged, and deeply flawed. And somehow, despite everything, she still saw glimpses of the man she'd been falling for. The first crack in her armor came during her 12-week ultrasound. Lena had gone alone, determined to maintain her independence. But as she lay on the examination table, watching the grainy image of her baby on the screen, listening to the rapid flutter of its heartbeat, she felt a wave of emotion so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. This was real. This tiny person growing inside her was real, and she was terrified. When she returned to the estate that afternoon, she found herself walking toward Victor's office instead of her room. She didn't know what she was going to say, only that she needed to say something. He was at his desk when she entered, surrounded by papers and laptop screens as usual. But the moment he saw her, everything else ceased to exist. He stood immediately, his expression a mixture of hope and caution. "Lena." "Is everything okay? The baby's fine," she said quickly. "I just had the ultrasound. Everything looks good." Relief flooded Victor's face. That's good. Thank you for telling me." Lena pulled a small envelope from her purse and held it out to him. "They gave me pictures." Victor's hands trembled slightly as he took the envelope. He opened it carefully, pulling out the ultrasound images. For a long moment, he just stared at them, his expression unreadable. Then Lena saw it, a single tear sliding down his cheek. "That's our baby," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Yes," Lena whispered. Victor looked up at her, and the raw vulnerability in his eyes made her chest ache. "Thank you for showing me this. You didn't have to." "I know." Lena wrapped her arms around herself. "But despite everything that's happened, this baby deserves to have a father who wants it, who's there for it." "I do want it," Victor said fiercely. "More than I've ever wanted anything, and I want to be there, for both of you, if you'll let me." Lena studied him, trying to see past her anger and hurt to the truth underneath. "I'm still so angry with you, Victor. What you did, it's not something I can just forgive and forget." "I know. But I also can't deny that you've kept your word these past few months. You've given me space. You've supported me without trying to control me. And that..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "That means something. Victor set the ultrasound pictures down carefully, as if they were made of glass. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we can try to find a way forward, Lena said. Not as lovers, not yet. Maybe not ever, but as co-parents, as two people who are going to raise this child together, whether we like it or not. I'll take whatever you're willing to give me, Victor said quietly. There have to be rules, Lena continued. Boundaries. I need to know that you respect my autonomy, my choices. I need to know that you won't try to manipulate or control me again. You have my word. Your word didn't mean much last time, Lena pointed out. Victor flinched but didn't look away. You're right, so let me prove it through actions instead. Tell me what you need, Lena. Tell me how I can start to earn back your trust. Lena thought about it for a moment. I want to be involved in decisions about my medical care. I want to choose my own doctor, my own birth plan. I want access to all the financial records related to my mother's treatment, and I want you to attend parenting classes with me. Victor's eyebrows rose slightly at the last one. Parenting classes? Yes, Lena said firmly, because neither of us knows what we're doing, and I'm not going to wing it when it comes to raising a child. We're going to learn how to do this right, together. A small smile tugged at Victor's lips. Okay, parenting classes, when do we start? Next Tuesday, 7 p.m. I already signed us up. The smile widened. You were already planning to ask me. I was considering it, Lena corrected. This isn't forgiveness, Victor. This is me trying to do what's best for our child. Don't confuse the two. I won't, Victor promised, but the hope in his eyes was unmistakable. Over the following weeks, something shifted between them. It wasn't trust exactly, and it certainly wasn't the easy intimacy they'd shared before the truth came out. But it was something. A tentative partnership built on shared responsibility and cautious cooperation. The parenting classes were awkward at first. Victor looked completely out of place among the other couples, his expensive suits and dangerous reputation clashing with the cheerful suburban parents discussing diaper brands and nursery themes. But he showed up every week, sat beside Lena, and listened with surprising attentiveness. One evening, during a session on labor and delivery, the instructor asked the partners to practice breathing exercises with the expecting mothers. Victor turned to Lena with an almost comical expression of uncertainty. I'm supposed to breathe with you? He asked. That's what the instructor said, Lena replied, fighting back a smile. All right, show me how. They went through the exercises together, and Lena found herself relaxing despite her determination to maintain emotional distance. There was something oddly intimate about sitting there, breathing in sync, preparing for the moment when their child would enter the world. You're good at this, Victor murmured during a break. At breathing? Lena asked dryly. At being patient with me. At giving me another chance when I don't deserve it. Lena's smile faded. I'm not doing this for you, Victor. I'm doing it for our baby. I know, he said quietly, but I'm grateful anyway. As Lena's pregnancy advanced into the second trimester, the baby began to move. The first time she felt those tiny flutters, she was alone in her room, reading a book. She pressed her hand to her stomach, marveling at the sensation. Life. Real, undeniable life growing inside her. Without thinking, she found herself walking to Victor's office again. It had become a pattern over the past few weeks. These small moments of connection, these tentative bridges built between them. He was on the phone when she entered, but he ended the call immediately upon seeing her. What's wrong? He asked, standing. Nothing's wrong, Lena said. The baby moved. I felt it for the first time. Victor's expression transformed. It moved? Just little flutters, but yes. He gestured helplessly toward her stomach. Would you let me try to feel? Lena hesitated. Physical contact with Victor was dangerous territory. Every time he touched her, even casually, she felt that pull, that magnetic attraction that had gotten her into this situation in the first place. But this wasn't about her and Victor. This was about their child. Okay, she said quietly. Victor crossed to her slowly, as if approaching something wild and precious. He knelt down in front of her, his hands hovering uncertainly over her rounded belly. I don't know if you'll be able to feel anything yet, Lena warned. It's still pretty subtle. Can I try anyway? Lena nodded, and Victor gently placed his palms against her stomach. They stood there in silence, waiting. After a moment, Lena felt another flutter, stronger this time. "There," she whispered. "Did you feel that?" Victor's eyes widened. Yes, I think I did." The wonder in his voice made Lena's throat tighten. For all his power and control, Victor looked completely undone by this small moment. His hands trembled slightly against her skin, and when he looked up at her, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "That's our baby," he said, his voice breaking. "That's our child in there." "Yes," Lena whispered. Victor leaned forward and pressed his forehead against her stomach, his shoulders shaking. It took Lena a moment to realize he was crying, actually crying, something she'd never seen him do before. "Victor, I'm sorry," he choked out. "I'm so sorry for what I did to you, for taking away your choice, for being so afraid of losing you that I became the thing you should fear most. I would give anything, anything, to go back and do it differently." Lena's own eyes filled with tears. She wanted to stay angry, to hold on to her righteous fury like a shield. But seeing him like this, broken and remorseful, made it impossible to maintain that distance. "I can't change what you did," she said softly, her hand coming to rest on his head. "And I can't promise I'll ever completely forgive you for it. But I can see that you're trying to be better. And for our baby's sake, that has to be enough." Victor looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. "It's more than I deserve." "Yes," Lena agreed. "It is, so don't waste it." He stood slowly, his hand still resting on her stomach. They stood there together, caught in a moment that felt almost sacred despite everything that had broken between them. "I love you," Victor said quietly. "I know I don't have the right to say that anymore. I know I destroyed any claim I had to your heart, but I need you to know that I love you, not as a possession, not as something to own, but as the mother of my child, as the woman who showed me what it means to be truly strong, as the person who makes me want to be better than I am." Lena's breath caught. She'd waited so long to hear those words spoken with genuine understanding, with real comprehension of what love actually meant. But hearing them now, after everything, felt bittersweet. "I loved you too," she whispered, "before, when I thought we were building something real together. But that person, the Victor I fell for, I don't know if he actually exists." "He does," Victor said fiercely. "He's standing right here, broken and flawed and desperately trying to earn his way back into your life." "Words are easy, Victor. I need actions. Consistent, honest actions over time. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Just be the man you promised to be." "I will," Victor vowed. "Every day. For the rest of my life." The moment was interrupted by a sudden commotion downstairs. Shouting, the sound of breaking glass, gunshots. Victor's entire demeanor changed instantly. He pushed Lena behind him, his body going taut with deadly focus. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me." "What's happening?" Lena asked, fear spiking through her. "I don't know, but I'm going to handle it." He looked at her, his expression fierce. "I will protect you and our baby, no matter what. Do you understand?" Lena nodded mutely. Victor kissed her forehead quickly, then strode from the room. Lena locked the door behind him with shaking hands, her heart pounding as more gunshots echoed through the house. She pressed herself into the corner farthest from the door, her hands protectively wrapped around her stomach, and prayed that Victor would keep his word. The next 30 minutes were the longest of Lena's life. She heard shouts, crashes, the unmistakable sounds of violence. Her phone remained silent. No calls, no texts, nothing to tell her what was happening or if Victor was all right. Finally, there was a knock at the door. "Lena, it's me. It's over." She recognized Victor's voice but was still cautious as she opened the door. He stood there, his shirt torn and bloodied, a cut above his eyebrow, but otherwise intact. "Are you hurt?" she asked immediately. "It's not my blood," Victor said grimly. "Well, not most of it anyway." Lena pulled him into the room and closed the door. "What happened?" "One of my rivals decided to send a message by attacking my home." Victor's jaw clenched. "They didn't get far. My security handled it." "Is everyone okay?" "3 of my men are injured. The attackers are dead." He said it flatly, without emotion, and Lena was reminded once again of the world she'd become part of. "This is because of me, isn't it?" she said quietly. "Because people know about us, about the baby." But Victor's expression hardened. "This is because weak men saw an opportunity and took it. They thought news of he hesitated, of my personal life made me vulnerable. They were wrong." "But they'll keep trying," Lena said, the reality settling over her like a weight. "As long as I'm here, as long as we're together, I'm a target. Our baby is a target." "Which is why I'm increasing security," Victor said firmly. "No one will touch you. I promise you that." "You can't promise that," Lena argued. "You can't control everything, Victor. And eventually, someone's going to get through. Someone's going to hurt me or our baby to get to you. That won't happen." "You don't know that." Victor grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone hurt you or our child. Do you understand me? I will destroy everything and everyone who poses a threat to you." The intensity in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it sparked something else, a fierce, protective anger of her own. "Then destroy them," she said, "because I'm not running. I'm not hiding. This is our baby, Victor, our family, and I'm not going to let your enemies take that away from us." Something shifted in Victor's expression, surprise perhaps, or recognition. "You're not leaving." "No," Lena said firmly. "I'm not leaving. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of letting other people's violence dictate my life. If we're doing this, if we're really trying to build something together, then I'm all in. Not because I don't have a choice, but because I'm choosing this. I'm choosing us." Victor pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." "I learned from watching you," Lena murmured against his chest. "The good parts, anyway." He laughed, a short, surprised sound. "The good parts?" "You're ruthless when it comes to protecting what's yours," Lena said. "I'm just applying that same principle. This baby is mine to protect. And I'll do whatever it takes." Victor pulled back to look at her, something like awe in his expression. "You really mean that?" "Yes," Lena said, "I do. So tell me what I need to know. About your enemies, about the threats we're facing, about everything. Because if I'm going to be part of this world, I need to understand it." Over the next several hours, Victor did something he'd never done before. He told her the truth about his business, his rivalries, the complex web of alliances and enmities that made up his criminal empire. He didn't sugarcoat it or try to make himself look better. He just laid it all out, giving her the full, ugly picture. Lena listened, absorbing information that would have terrified her months ago. But she wasn't the same scared, overwhelmed girl who'd first walked into this house. She'd been forged in fire, tempered by betrayal and hardship. She was stronger now, harder. "The attack tonight was organized by the Castellano family," Victor concluded. "They've been trying to move into my territory for months. Killing you would have been a way to destabilize my organization, to make me seem weak." "But you're not weak," Lena said. "No," Victor agreed. "And now they know that. But they won't stop trying, not unless I make it clear that the cost is too high." "What are you going to do?" Victor's expression went cold. "What I should have done months ago. I'm going to eliminate the threat, permanently." Lena should have been horrified. A few months ago, she would have been. But now, with her hand resting on her pregnant belly, she found she couldn't summon the outrage. "Do what you have to do," she said quietly. "Just come back to me. Come back to us." Victor cupped her face in his hands. "Always." He kissed her then. A deep, claiming kiss that spoke of possession and protection and promises he intended to keep. Lena kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring all her complicated, conflicted feelings into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victor rested his forehead against hers. "I don't deserve you," he murmured. "No," Lena agreed. "You don't. But you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to earn me anyway." "Every single day," Victor promised. The war that followed was brutal and swift. Victor moved against the Castellano family with surgical precision, dismantling their operations and eliminating their leadership in less than a week. It was ruthless, efficient, and absolutely terrifying to witness. Lena stayed in the estate throughout, protected by layers of security that made the house feel more like a fortress than a home. She watched Victor transform into the monster everyone whispered about, saw him become cold and merciless in a way that should have repulsed her. But it didn't. Because she knew that every terrible thing he did to protect her and their unborn child. When it was over, when the Castellano family had been reduced to nothing, Victor came to her covered in blood and exhaustion. "It's done," he said quietly. "You're safe now. The baby's safe." Lena looked at him. This dangerous, damaged man who had violated her trust and trapped her with his obsession, but who had also given her security, protection, and a fierce, unwavering devotion. "Come here," she said softly. Victor crossed to her and Lena pulled him down beside her on the couch. She took his hand, the same hand that had just orchestrated the destruction of an entire criminal organization, and placed it on her swollen belly. "Feel that?" she asked as the baby kicked. Victor's breath caught. "Yes." "That's our child," Lena said. "That's what we're fighting for. Not power, not control, not revenge. Just this tiny life that deserves a chance to grow up safe and loved." "I know," Victor whispered. "Do you?" Lena turned to face him. "Because I need you to understand something, Victor. I'm not going to raise our child in a war zone. I'm not going to let them grow up surrounded by violence and fear. So if we're doing this, if we're really going to be a family, then things have to change." "What are you asking me to do?" Victor asked carefully. "I'm asking you to be smart about the risks you take. I'm asking you to prioritize our family over your empire. I'm asking you to remember that you're not just a crime lord anymore. You're going to be a father. And that has to mean something." Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You're right. I've been thinking about this too. About what kind of world I'm bringing our child into. About what kind of father I want to be. And I want to be better than my father was," Victor said quietly. "I want to give our child what I never had. Stability, safety, love, even if that means making changes I never thought I'd make." "What kind of changes?" Lena asked. "I'm going to start legitimizing my operations," Victor said. "Moving money into legal businesses. Distancing myself from the worst of the violence. It won't happen overnight, but..." He looked at her with fierce determination. "I'm going to build something our child can be proud of, something that doesn't require blood to maintain." Lena felt tears spring to her eyes. "You mean that?" "I mean it," Victor said. "For you, for our baby, for the family we're going to build. I'll do whatever it takes." Lena leaned forward and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of tentative hope. "Then maybe we really do have a chance." "We do," Victor promised. "I'll make sure of it." And for the first time since learning the truth about her pregnancy, Lena allowed herself to believe him. The months that followed were a study in transformation. Victor kept his word, slowly and methodically shifting his empire from the shadows into the light. It wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't clean, but Lena watched him navigate the treacherous waters with a determination she'd never seen before. He sold off his most violent operations, invested heavily in legitimate businesses, and began the painstaking process of becoming someone respectable, or at least someone who appeared respectable on the surface. The change didn't happen overnight, and there were still moments when Lena caught glimpses of the ruthless crime lord lurking beneath the veneer of civility. But those moments became less frequent as time went on. As her pregnancy progressed into the third trimester, Lena found herself softening toward Victor in ways she hadn't anticipated. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was something close to acceptance. She'd come to understand that Victor was fundamentally damaged, shaped by a violent world that had taught him love and possession were the same thing. He was trying to unlearn those lessons, and the effort showed in every careful word, every respectful boundary he maintained. One evening in her 8th month, Lena was sitting in the newly decorated nursery, folding tiny clothes and trying not to cry at how impossibly small they were. Victor appeared in the doorway, watching her with an expression of such tender longing it made her chest ache. "Can I come in?" he asked. "It's your house," Lena pointed out, though her tone was gentle rather than bitter. "It's our home," Victor corrected, stepping inside. "There's a difference." He sat down on the floor beside her, picking up a small onesie and examining it with wonder. "I can't believe something this tiny is going to be a person." "Our person," Lena said softly. "Our daughter," Victor amended, his voice filled with awe. They'd found out the baby's sex a few weeks earlier. A girl. Victor had cried when the ultrasound technician told them, and Lena had held his hand while he composed himself, both of them overwhelmed by the reality of it all. "Have you thought any more about names?" Victor asked, carefully folding the onesie. "I have a few ideas," Lena said, "but I want to hear yours first." Victor was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing the soft fabric. "I was thinking about Sophia. It was my grandmother's name. The only person in my family who showed me any real kindness." Lena considered it, testing the sound in her mind. "Sophia Moreau." "I like it." "Sophia Hart Moreau," Victor corrected. "She should have both our names." The gesture surprised her. In Victor's world, children took their father's name without question. Offering to hyphenate was a small thing, but it spoke volumes about his commitment to seeing her as an equal partner. "Sophia Hart Moreau," Lena repeated, smiling. "It's perfect." Victor reached over and placed his hand on her swollen belly, a gesture that had become familiar over the past few months. Sophia kicked immediately, as if recognizing her father's touch, and Victor's face lit up with that same wonder Lena had seen 100 times before. "She's getting stronger," he murmured. "She's going to be a fighter," Lena said, "just like her parents." "I hope she gets your heart instead of mine," Victor said quietly. "Your capacity for forgiveness, your strength, your goodness." "And I hope she gets your determination," Lena replied. "Your loyalty, your ability to change when it matters most." Victor looked at her, and in his eyes Lena saw the man she'd been falling for all those months ago, before the betrayal. "Do you really see me that way? After everything I did?" "I see who you're trying to become," Lena said carefully. "And that's enough for now." "For now," Victor echoed, a hint of pain in his voice. "Will it ever be more than that, Lena? Will you ever be able to trust me completely again?" Lena thought about it, really thought about it. The truth was complicated, messy, and uncomfortable, but Victor had asked for honesty, and she owed him that much. "I don't know," she admitted. "Some days I think maybe we can rebuild what we had. Other days I remember what you did, and I wonder if I'm crazy for even trying. But then Sophia kicks, and I remember that this isn't just about us anymore. It's about giving our daughter the best possible chance at a happy life, and that means figuring out how to be partners, even if we're never lovers again." "I want to be both," Victor said, "but I'll take whatever you're willing to give me." Before Lena could respond, a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. She gasped, her hand flying to her stomach. "What's wrong?" Victor asked immediately, his voice sharp with concern. "I don't know, I just—" Another pain, stronger this time. "Oh no." "What?" "Lena, talk to me." I think something's wrong. It hurts, Victor. It really hurts." Victor was on his feet instantly, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling the doctor. Just breathe, okay? Just breathe." The next few hours were a blur of pain, fear, and frantic medical intervention. The doctor arrived within 20 minutes, examining Lena while Victor paced the room like a caged animal. The diagnosis was preeclampsia, dangerously high blood pressure that threatened both Lena and the baby. "We need to get her to the hospital," the doctor said grimly. "Now, if her blood pressure doesn't stabilize, we may need to deliver the baby tonight." "She's only 34 weeks, Victor said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "It's too early." "It's early, but the baby's viable," the doctor assured him. "The priority now is keeping both of them alive." The ride to the hospital was tense and terrifying. Lena lay in the back of Victor's armored SUV, her head in his lap while he stroked her hair and murmured reassurances she couldn't quite hear over the roaring in her ears. The pain came in waves, each one worse than the last, and she found herself gripping Victor's hand so tightly she was probably hurting him. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know," Victor said, his voice rough. "But you're the strongest person I know. You're going to get through this. Both of you are." "Promise me something," Lena said, another contraction tearing through her. "If something happens, if they have to choose—" "Don't!" Victor interrupted sharply. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. Victor, please. If they have to choose, save the baby. Promise me." "No," Victor said fiercely. "No, I'm not making that promise because it's not going to come to that. You're both going to be fine. Do you hear me? Both of you. Lena wanted to argue, but another wave of pain stole her breath. She closed her eyes and focused on breathing, on staying conscious, on holding on just a little bit longer. When they reached the hospital, everything became a whirlwind of activity. Nurses and doctors swarmed around her, checking vitals, hooking up monitors, shouting medical jargon she couldn't understand. Through it all, Victor stayed by her side, refusing to leave even when the medical staff tried to push him out. "I'm staying," he said, his tone brooking no argument. "That's my family. I'm not going anywhere." The lead obstetrician, Dr. Santos, took one look at Victor's expression and wisely decided not to fight him on it. "Fine, but stay out of the way and do exactly what we tell you." The next few hours were the most terrifying of Lena's life. Her blood pressure continued to climb despite medication, and Sophia's heart rate began to show signs of distress. Finally, Dr. Santos made the call. "We need to do an emergency C-section," she said. "The baby's in distress, and waiting any longer puts both of you at risk." Lena felt tears stream down her face. "Is she going to be okay?" "We're going to do everything we can," Dr. Santos promised, "but we need to move now." They prepped Lena for surgery with terrifying efficiency. Victor was given scrubs and allowed into the operating room, where he sat by Lena's head, holding her hand and trying to keep his own terror from showing on his face. "I love you," he said suddenly, his voice breaking. "I know I don't have the right to say it. I know I don't deserve you. But I love you, Lena Hart. I have from the moment you tried so hard to be invisible. And whatever happens in the next hour, I need you to know that." "I love you too," Lena whispered, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "I never stopped. I was so angry and hurt and—" "I know," Victor said, pressing his forehead to hers. "I know. And I'm so sorry for all of it, for everything." Tell me later," Lena said as the anesthesia began to take effect. "After we meet our daughter. Tell me everything then." "I will," Victor promised. "I swear I will." The surgery itself was a blur. Lena was awake but couldn't feel anything below her chest. She watched Victor's face instead, seeing his expression shift from terror to wonder as the doctors worked. And then, suddenly, there was a sound that changed everything, a cry, thin and reedy but undeniably alive. "It's a girl, Doctor," Santos announced, holding up a tiny wriggling bundle. "Small but fighting, just like her mother." Lena burst into tears, relief and joy and overwhelming love crashing over her in waves. "Is she okay? Please tell me she's okay." "She's breathing on her own," one of the neonatal nurses said, quickly assessing the baby. 5 pounds, 2 ounces. She'll need to spend some time in the NICU, but her vitals are stable. She's a fighter. They brought Sophia over briefly, letting Lena see her daughter's tiny, scrunched-up face before whisking her away to the NICU. In that brief moment, Lena felt her entire world shift and realign. This tiny person, this perfect little miracle, was hers. Theirs. Nothing else mattered. Victor stayed with Lena through the rest of the surgery and recovery, refusing to leave her side even when the nurses insisted he should go check on the baby. "Lena first," he said firmly. "Once I know she's stable, then I'll go to Sophia." When Lena was finally settled in a recovery room, groggy but safe, Victor finally allowed himself to visit the NICU. He returned an hour later with tears streaming down his face and photos on his phone. "She's perfect," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "She's so small, and she's hooked up to all these monitors, but she's perfect, Lena. She has your nose and your chin, and when she opened her eyes, they were this deep blue color, and—" He broke off, unable to continue. Lena reached for his hand. "Show me the pictures." Victor sat beside her bed and scrolled through dozens of photos. Sophia in her incubator, Sophia's tiny hand wrapped around Victor's finger, Sophia sleeping peacefully despite the medical equipment surrounding her. Each image made Lena's heart swell with a love so fierce it was almost painful. "I can't believe we made her," Lena whispered. "I can't believe you forgave me enough to let me be here for this," Victor replied. "After everything I did, you still—" He stopped, shaking his head. "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you or Sophia or any of it." "Maybe not," Lena agreed, "but you're here anyway. And you're going to spend the rest of your life being the father she deserves, the partner I need, the man you promised to become. I will, Victor vowed. Every single day. For both of you. The next few weeks were exhausting and terrifying and wonderful all at once. Sophia remained in the NICU while her tiny lungs grew stronger, and Lena and Victor spent every possible moment by her side. They learned to change impossibly small diapers, to feed her through tiny bottles, to read the monitors that tracked her every breath and heartbeat. Through it all, something profound shifted between them. The crisis had stripped away the last of their defenses, leaving only raw honesty and shared purpose. They were parents now, united by their love for their daughter and their determination to give her the best life possible. One night, while they sat together in the NICU watching Sophia sleep, Victor spoke quietly. I've been thinking about what you said, about raising her in a war zone. And? Lena prompted. And you were right. I can't be the man I was and be the father she needs. So I've made some decisions. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I'm getting out, completely. Selling off the last of the criminal operations, investing everything in legitimate businesses. It'll take time, maybe a year or two to fully transition, but I'm done with that life. Lena stared at him. Victor, that's everything. Your whole empire, your power. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything, Victor said. Power means nothing if it costs me my family. And I almost lost you both tonight. I won't risk that again. What will you do instead? I've been working with some investors on a private security firm, Victor explained. Legitimate, legal, using my connections and expertise for good instead of destruction. It won't have the same rush as what I did before, but he looked at Sophia, his expression softening. But I'll be able to come home to you two without blood on my hands. And that's worth more than any empire. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. You're really doing this. You're really changing. I'm trying, Victor said. For you, for Sophia, for the man I want to be. Lena reached over and took his hand, lacing their fingers together. Then I'm going to try too, to forgive you, to trust you again, to build something real with you, not just for Sophia's sake, but because I want to. Victor's breath caught. You mean that? I mean it, Lena said. You're not the same man who betrayed me, Victor. You've proven that over these past months. You've been patient, honest, and present in ways I never expected. And watching you with Sophia, she glanced at their sleeping daughter. You're already the father I hoped you'd be. Maybe you can be the partner I need too. I will be, Victor promised. Whatever it takes, however long it takes. I'll prove to you that I'm worth the risk. You already have, Lena said softly. She leaned over and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of tentative hope. It wasn't like their first kiss, full of passion and possession. And it wasn't like the desperate kisses during the crisis, full of fear and need. This kiss was different, a promise, a beginning, a choice freely made. When they pulled apart, Victor rested his forehead against hers. I love you, Lena Hart. I will love you until the day I die. And I will spend every moment of every day trying to deserve that love. I love you too, Lena whispered. The real you. Not the monster, not the crime lord. Just you. The man who brings me coffee in the morning and cries when our daughter opens her eyes. That's who I love. That's who I want to be, Victor said. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching Sophia sleep, both of them thinking about the strange, complicated journey that had brought them to this moment. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been clean or simple or anything like the fairy tales Lena had read as a child. But it was real, and it was theirs. Sophia came home 3 weeks later, healthy and growing stronger every day. The nursery Victor had spent months perfecting finally had its occupant, and the house that had once felt like a prison transformed into something that actually resembled a home. Lena's mother, cancer now in remission, thanks to the treatments Victor had funded, visited often, marveling at her granddaughter and carefully not asking too many questions about how Lena and Victor had ended up together. She seemed content to accept the official story, that they'd fallen in love, things had moved quickly, and now they were a family. The truth was far more complicated than that. But as Lena watched Victor gently rock Sophia to sleep one evening, humming a lullaby in a language she didn't recognize, she realized that the complicated truth didn't matter as much as the simple reality. They were a family, broken and imperfect and built on a foundation of mistakes and betrayals, but a family nonetheless. And they were making it work. Victor caught her watching and smiled. What are you thinking about? About how far we've come, Lena said. About how impossible this all seemed 6 months ago. Do you regret it? Victor asked quietly. Any of it? Lena considered the question carefully. Did she regret the betrayal, the loss of choice, the months of anger and hurt? Yes, absolutely. Those things had scarred her in ways that would never fully heal. But did she regret Sophia? This beautiful little girl who had her father's determination and her mother's stubborn strength? Did she regret the man Victor had become in his effort to be worthy of them both? I regret how we got here, Lena said finally, but I don't regret where we ended up. That's fair, Victor said, carefully placing Sophia in her crib. I regret it too, every day, but I'm grateful you gave me the chance to make it right. You're still making it right, Lena pointed out. This isn't finished, Victor. Trust isn't rebuilt in a few months. I know, Victor said, crossing to where she stood and wrapping his arms around her. But I'm not going anywhere. I have all the time in the world to prove myself to you. Lena leaned into his embrace, letting herself relax in his arms for the first time in months without reservation or fear. Good, because I'm holding you to that. The months turned into years, and slowly, painstakingly, Victor kept his word. He transitioned completely out of his criminal operations, building a successful security company that employed many of his former associates in legitimate work. The violence that had once defined his life became a distant memory, replaced by board meetings and business negotiations. Their relationship evolved too, growing deeper and more stable as trust slowly rebuilt itself. There were setbacks, moments when old fears resurfaced, when Lena couldn't help but wonder if Victor was keeping secrets again. But each time, he patiently reassured her, opening his life completely to her scrutiny until those fears gradually faded. They married when Sophia was 2 years old in a small ceremony attended only by close family and friends. It wasn't the grand society wedding Victor could have afforded. Instead, it was intimate and genuine, with vows they wrote themselves that spoke of second chances, forgiveness, and choosing each other every day. I promise to never take away your choices again, Victor said, his voice thick with emotion as he slipped a ring onto Lena's finger. I promise to see you as my equal partner in all things. I promise to be the man our daughter thinks I am and the husband you deserve. I promise to keep fighting for us, Lena replied, her own eyes wet with tears. I promise to believe in your capacity for change. I promise to love you, not despite your flaws, but including them, because they're part of what makes you who you are. When Sophia was 5, she asked Lena a question that nearly broke her heart. Mommy, why do you sometimes look sad when you look at Daddy? They were in the garden, Sophia playing with her dolls while Lena weeded the flower beds. Lena sat back on her heels, considering how to answer. Sometimes people we love hurt us, she said carefully, even when they don't mean to. And even after we forgive them, we remember that hurt sometimes. Did Daddy hurt you? Sophia asked, her blue eyes, so like Victor's, wide with concern. A long time ago, yes, Lena admitted. But he's spent every day since then trying to make it right, and that's important too. Does he still make you sad? Lena thought about it. Did Victor still make her sad? Sometimes, yes. When she thought about how they'd started, about the choice that had been stolen from her. But he also made her happy in countless ways, with his terrible jokes, his fierce devotion to their daughter, his constant efforts to be better. Not as much as he makes me happy, Lena said finally. And the sadness gets smaller every year. Good, Sophia said decisively, because Daddy's the best daddy in the whole world. He shouldn't make you sad. Lena pulled her daughter into a hug, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. You're right. He is the best daddy, and he loves you more than anything. He loves you too, Sophia said matter-of-factly. He tells me all the time. He says you're the bravest, strongest person he knows. He said that? Uh-huh. He says you saved him. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. I think we saved each other, sweetheart. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Lena found Victor in his study. He looked up from his paperwork as she entered, and the love in his eyes still had the power to take her breath away. Sophia asked me today why I sometimes look sad when I look at you, Lena said without preamble. Victor's expression tightened. What did you tell her? The truth. That you hurt me once, but you've spent years making it right. Lena crossed to his desk and perched on the edge. She said, "You tell her I saved you." "You did," Victor said simply. "You saved me from becoming the monster I was turning into. You gave me a reason to be better. You gave me Sophia. You gave me a life worth living." "You gave me those things too," Lena said, in the most twisted, complicated way possible. "But you did." Victor stood and pulled her into his arms. "I know what I did was unforgivable. I know I don't deserve the life we've built. But I swear to you, Lena, I will spend every remaining day I have making sure you never regret giving me this chance." I don't regret it," Lena said, the words coming easier now than they had in years past. "I did for a long time, but not anymore. Because this..." She gestured around them, encompassing their home, their daughter sleeping upstairs, the life they'd built together. "This is real. This is ours. And it's worth everything it took to get here." Victor kissed her then, deep and tender and full of promises kept and yet to be made, and Lena kissed him back, no longer the frightened girl who'd scrubbed floors to survive, but a woman who had claimed her own power and chosen her own path, even when that path led through darkness to reach the light. They had started as predator and prey, possessor and possessed, but through pain and struggle and fierce determination on both sides, they had become something else entirely. Partners, equals. Two broken people who had somehow managed to build something beautiful from the shattered pieces of who they'd been. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy and complicated and marked by scars that would never fully fade. But it was real. It was theirs. And for both of them, that was enough. Years later, when Sophia was grown and had children of her own, she would ask her mother about her story, about how a housemaid had ended up married to one of the most powerful men in the city, about how love had survived betrayal and emerged stronger on the other side. And Lena would tell her the truth, all of it. The good, the bad, and the impossibly complicated middle ground where most of life actually happened. "Your father and I didn't start out right," she would say. "We started out all wrong. But we chose each other. Every single day, despite everything, we chose each other. And that choice, that daily recommitment to building something better, that's what love actually is." "Not the fairy tale version?" Sophia would ask. "No," Lena would reply, smiling. "Not the fairy tale version. The real version. The one where people make terrible mistakes and have to live with the consequences. The one where love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing to stay and do the work even when it would be easier to leave." "Do you think he really changed?" Sophia would ask. "Or did you just learn to accept who he was?" "Both," Lena would answer honestly. "He changed in fundamental ways. He became a better man, a better father, a better partner. But I also learned to accept that people are complicated, that someone can do terrible things and still be capable of tremendous love, that redemption is possible, even for those who don't deserve it." "And you're happy?" Sophia would press. "Truly happy?" Lena would think about her life, the years of love and laughter, the quiet moments and the grand gestures, the family they'd built together against all odds. And she would smile. "Yes," she would say, "I'm truly happy. Not because everything was perfect, but because we fought for this. We earned it. And that makes it worth so much more than any fairy tale ever could be. And that, in the end, was the truth of it." Lena Hart had walked into Victor Moreau's house as nobody, invisible, powerless, desperate, and she had emerged as someone who mattered, someone who was seen, someone who had claimed her own power and used it to transform not just her own life, but the life of the man who had tried to own her. She was no longer invisible. And Victor, for all his power and wealth and dangerous reputation, had learned what it truly meant to love someone, not as a possession, but as an equal, not by taking their choices, but by respecting them, not through control, but through trust. It had taken a lifetime to build, but it was theirs, complicated, messy, imperfect, and absolutely real. And in the end, that was all that mattered.